to start by acknowledging. I'd like to start by acknowledging that our primary location is in Concord, which is why most staff are in Concord today. I've also requested for our agenda in November that we discuss the primary location system and discuss with an eye towards next year and whether we want to make any changes from this year. Also, I think we have some weighty items on today's agenda, and I'd just like to remind everyone to treat everyone with a bit of grace. We've got a lot going on in this world, and it's important that we treat each other with respect and that we move our agenda forward. We have a couple of board members that have to leave right at 2. So I will move folks along as well. So it's no hard feelings. It's just we have a few items we have to get to pretty quickly. And with that, turning it over to our clerk for the roll call.
Belvedere. Concord.
I am here.
Contra Costa County.
Present.
Corte Madera.
Here.
El Cerrito.
Here.
Fairfax.
Here.
Larkspur.
Here.
Mill Valley.
Here.
Pinal.
Here.
San Rafael.
Present.
Thank you. Walnut Creek.
Here.
Quorum established.
Thank you, Clerk. We also have a request to move item 8B above item number 6 after consent.
Do we make a motion for that, or?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion to move item 8B to under consent through the chair.
I'll second that.
All right, I heard a motion and a second. Clerk, can we have the roll call on this?
Can we get who seconded this, please?
This is Laura in Concord.
Thank you.
Laura Nakamura. Do we need a roll call on this, or is it the chair's prerogative to shift?
I'm going to check in with the general counsel.
Yes, thank you. Right here. Yes, the chair can adjust the agenda. We don't have to make a motion. If there is disagreement on that change, then I recommend we follow through with a motion.
Thank you. I accept the suggestion from Director Scales Preston. Does anyone object? All right, hearing none, also acknowledging that Director Wilkinson has walked in, so Belvedere is present as well. All right, board announcements. We'll start in Concord. Are there any board announcements in Concord?
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to say, this is Director Murphy. I just wanted to say that on Friday we had our technical committee meeting, and our technical committee did approve the actually 2 pretty important and vital service agreements. The first is the energy storage service agreement with Bracaseka BESS, and the second is the renewable power purchase agreement. So just wanted to again thank MCE staff for putting these 2 contracts together. It's as you all know, it's not easy to do a lot of the tedious work, but we did approve those 2 PPAs, and looking forward to those being added to our portfolio. So thanks again.
Thank you very much, Director Murphy. Any other announcements in Concord?
Yes, Director Scales Preston.
Go
or
ahead.
Chair Scales Preston. Chair, thank you. And I just want to say thank you for just reminding us to, if possible, if we could, just as a courtesy, just making room for all committee members to be able to speak up today, but also if we can move along through the agenda items as well. And for any agenda items or for any conversation or questions that may not be agendized, if we could look at agendizing that at a future meeting as well, because we do have a hefty agenda here today, and I just want to make sure that we all get through it. And then for the committee members, I'm one as myself, I'm here until 2 o'clock, but I want to be able to be here for all the agenda items that are listed today. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. I also have a hard stop at 2, so we will make sure to move us along. Thank you. Any other announcements in Concord? All right, any in San Rafael? All right, seeing none, moving to item number 3, public open time. Are there members of the public who wish to discuss an item not on the agenda? We have one in San Rafael, who we will start with. Ken, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Ken Strong from Marin Conservation League. I want to talk a little bit about the public comment process. Last week, not knowing what the public comment process was, I emailed staff because I couldn't find anything on the website that told me what it was. I got an acknowledgement early in the week, but I did not hear anything further. And thus I made a public comment at the technical committee meeting about it. I received a response later that day. So point number 1 is there is no publicly facing policy the public can access as to how to make public comment in writing and when. The second point on that was, although I got a good response on a number of the questions, I didn't learn what the timing is on submitting a public comment. I didn't know whether it has to be in 1 day ahead of time in order for it to be distributed to the board members or not. And that led to a rushed public comment. It's difficult when you're commenting on something that's on an agenda. You've only got a week to work with to start with. So something that specifies exactly when a public comment must be submitted in order to be distributed to the board members would be helpful. The next point I would make is that we submitted a public comment letter Friday afternoon in a Word document and actually went in PDF, I think, on Saturday because we were a little unclear on the timing there. It's our understanding that that was submitted only to the XCOM members. And we think it appropriate that when there is a public comment letter on a committee matter, that it be submitted or sent to the entire board if it is not already being done so. That way, a board member who is not on the committee but who may be interested in commenting on an issue or attending a committee meeting would know to do so based upon reviewing the public comment letter. So we would like to see wider distribution of public comment letters. Finally, we learned in the process that public comment letters are not distributed to interested parties, nor are they placed on the public website. We think all public comments should be posted on the website in connection with the agenda. A number of cities do that already, requiring, what we learned was that in order to review a public comment letter, we have to go to the office either in San Rafael or in Concord. It's ridiculous in the internet age that to view public comments, you'd have to go to a physical office. It's also an equity issue. Community members who rely on public transportation and perhaps live in Napa or Solano shouldn't have to travel to the offices. They might not even know if there was a public comment. So please post all public comment letters on your website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in San Rafael? Seeing none.
I do see
Concord?
somebody on online.
Okay, we'll start in Concord. Is there any members of the public? All right, seeing none, we'll go online. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, it's Jody Timms calling in. Good afternoon, directors. I'm speaking on behalf of 350 Marin. I'm a founding member of that nonprofit here in Marin. And I just want to urge you, I've sent a letter, but it was late, on behalf of our organization in support of setting up a standing finance committee and hiring a chief financial officer. I want to urge the executive committee and hopefully my letter will go to all board members to encourage those two practices. I think they're very, very important in these really difficult financial times. There's a lot that needs to be reviewed and evaluated on the financial aspect of an organization. Some of us are working hard in the community to advocate for electrification, and we need more community programs that support those activities and can help. A lot of CCAs in California are doing incredible work on that front, and I'd really like to see MCE take a little bit more active role on that front. I've been tracking MCE from when I worked for CDA at the county, and Don Weiss was hired. So I love the work that you've done. I'm a strong advocate, and I would love to see it reach out more directly to the community. And those kinds of programs have to be based on your financial health. So you'll see a letter from me, hopefully, but I appreciate being able to take a few minutes and express myself today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jody, and just acknowledging that staff did distribute your letter, and I have read it, as I imagine many of my colleagues have. So appreciate you calling in as well.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other commenters online for public open time?
I see no raised hands, Chair.
All right. Moving on to item number 4, a report from our CEO, Don Weiss.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to start with we're going to have a different approach to the CEO report than usual, because there were a lot of questions about the budget in our September Executive Committee and our board meeting. And so this has prompted a quick review of financials that I think will help catch us all up to speed. We know that it can be really difficult to track everything that's happening at MCE. You all have busy lives in public service, and there's so much information. Sometimes it's hard to find what is the most relevant. So I want to review and boil down some of the key trends and levers that address concerns. I'm going to run through this quickly because I know we have a hefty agenda, but happy to answer questions after the meeting, happy to meet with any board members that are looking for additional information one-on-one or in small groups, whatever folks are interested in. So we've got a slide deck here. Because it wasn't provided in advance, we've printed it out. We try to save trees, so we don't do this too often, but we wanted you all to have it to take back. We can also share it electronically so that everyone has it. But the first thing, let's go to the first slide here. I want to highlight that the trend that we've seen, and what we're gonna hear more about the trends in the energy sector later today in our pro forma update. But the cost of energy is very volatile. This has been true since before we formed MCE. It's one of the reasons that there was a lot of concern and a lot of thought going into forming MCE. Since we formed, the cost of energy hasn't gotten less volatile. It continues to be volatile. Let's go to the next slide. I just want to remind folks about some of the discussions we've had previously on the volatile energy market. So you may recall that in our 21-22 fiscal year audited results, we saw a variance of about 6% between what was planned and what our actuals were. In 22-23, if you look at where that orange line is there, you'll see a 13% variance up. We had a higher cost of energy that year. There were a number of reasons for that. We've been doing some expansions along the way, so sometimes that's a reason for cost of energy going up. Other times it's the market. And then you'll see the budgeted cost of energy versus the actual cost of energy in our 23-24 audited financials was a downward trend. We saw a 14% variance down. We projected a higher cost of energy than we actually saw. And then in our last fiscal year, we saw the opposite, not as much of a variance. It was an 11% variance. This time the variance was up. So we heard a lot of concerns expressed at our September XCOM and board meeting about that 11% variance up. It is a big number, but we were expecting that in part, and we do see the variances going both directions year over year. So I want folks to make sure that they're taking the long view when they look at our financials. And then let's go to our next slide. I want to make sure folks are remembering what was presented in November when we did our pro forma update. We're getting our pro forma update for 2025 later on in this agenda. But just as a reminder, last year when we talked about the energy projections, we were noticing a trend where renewable energy prices were going up. In fact, what you see on this slide is that we told your committee that prices were already up 20% since the time of setting the budget. We also told your board that we were expecting price increases related to the VAMO contract, which is something we did refer to in our September board meetings. You might remember that wasn't a huge surprise. We knew it was coming. We were talking about it last November. So I just wanted to remind you all about that. Next slide. This is another slide from our deck back in November of 2024. And on the bottom there, I just wanted to point out that we were letting XCOM know that we were already seeing a $15 million increase in our costs for the fiscal year. So we were projecting that last year. It wasn't a surprise. Next slide. And then the planned cost of energy. We knew that it was going up a lot. The cost of energy represents 94% of MCE's operating budget. And we were seeing a need to increase our cost of energy in the budget. So in February, when we did our budget setting process, and in March, we built in an extra $100 million. So we've had a frequent reference to a $200 million difference between 2024 and 2025 audited financials. I want to emphasize that $100 million of that was planned. That was in the budget. And this is a slide from our March presentation showing you the need to increase the budget because the cost of energy was going up. We were seeing an increase in the budget that was pretty dramatic, more than we've seen before. And I think John can provide a little more context for that when he does his presentation. In addition to that, not only were we seeing changes in the energy market, but we also had some impacts from regulatory changes because of having to account for line losses. And you all might remember us talking about that in March. That line losses issue was a $13 million hit to the budget, but we planned for that. So next slide. This was the unplanned cost of energy increase. This is what we weren't expecting. And this is what happened at the very end of our fiscal year. It was a $76 million variance, not a $200 million variance, a $76 million variance. And there are three primary reasons for that shown here at the top of this bar chart. This was presented in the September board meeting, but I think it might have gotten lost in the weeds there. So I just wanted to point it out. The early deliveries of energy supply through an early invoice had a big impact on our budget. The VAMO price increase was above what we were expecting. That was a hit on the budget. And then we ended up with a long position. We had more renewables than we were expecting. The good news is that our power content label shows we're over 70% renewable this year. So we can brag about that. But if we had been able to sell off some of that long position, we would have, and it would have helped reduce our variance. We were at the end of an RPS budget compliance cycle, and that had an impact on our ability to sell that long position. And we're going to talk more about that at the retreat. So let's go to the next slide. Almost done here. I just wanted to pose the question that I think a lot of folks are bringing up. Are MCE's results an outlier? Are we doing something different? Are we doing something wrong? Could we do a better job? I think the key takeaways from our analysis and experts that we work with, all market participants have been facing volatility. And we do an annual assessment internally of financial results from other CCAs. And we've provided that here. I'm not going to run through all of it in the interest of time. If we have extra time at the end, I'll run through it at the end when we get to staff matters. But it's more of a takeaway for you. The things I want to emphasize are that CCAs have fiscal years that begin and end on different months. There's a 3 to 5 month lag in receiving audited statements after the fiscal year close. And so far in 2025, MCE is the only CCA with audited results. So any external parties out there that might be doing analysis of financials, they might be pulling numbers off of the websites. And if they're looking at 2025 numbers, a lot of what they're seeing are projections based on historical information, not forward-looking information. Historical information was a bit more rosy. So I just want to caution folks in making comparisons that we really need to look at audited results because the unaudited statements are pretty unreliable due to data lags. I just want to point out a couple of these slides in our analysis. So let's go to the next one. This shows you MCE's net position in 2023-24. This is where we're doing an apples to apples comparison of financials results. These are audited financials. We're kind of in the middle of the mix there. We are one of the larger CCAs, so we're a little more on the side of the table with the larger CCAs. And then the next slide, let's take a look at days cash on hand. That's an important metric in the market. Again, we're doing very well on that front financially. The next slide I want to show you is really a good place to look for unbiased information about the financial state or financial health of an agency. What do the markets say? What do the credit rating agencies say? Here you're seeing the probability of default of many CCAs. We've listed some IOUs there as well, but you'll see MC is pretty low on the scale there. Our probability of default based on the credit industry is very low. So that's an indicator that's worth considering. And the very last slide here that I want to present is a link, and we're going to click on this link, and I just want to show folks how to find MCE's financial documents. They are posted on our website. They are also emailed to every board member once a month. Every month you get a treasurer's report. Quarterly, part of your treasurer's report includes other financial information. That's a Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4 report. That is already up on the website, so I want you to know where to find it. So let's scroll down. We're going to go down to key documents. Let's navigate to the key documents. Yeah, it's down there on the bottom. Okay, let's scroll down. I wasn't expecting that picture to show up, but let's go to the quarterly financial statements, unaudited. There we go. And let's go to the most recent one. That's Q1. It just came out a couple of weeks ago. And the reason you haven't gotten it in your inbox yet is that we're waiting for the treasurer's report, investment part of the report to be completed, and then we'll compile everything and send it to you in one email so you're not having to search for lots of things. That will come out this week. But here's a preview. We post it as soon as it's available. Let's scroll down to the next page. There we go, statement of net position. Now again, these are not audited. These are results that we're seeing so far throughout the year. We will audit these once we get to the end of the fiscal year. But any board member or member of the public can always look at these. They live on our website in perpetuity. Director Andre had a great suggestion last week about some other charts and things she'd like to have us add to this quarterly report. Easy to do. We appreciate the concrete suggestion there because we already have the data and it's presented in different formats in different ways, but that might create some easier visuals for folks. Can you scroll down just to the end so folks can see the different pages here? Yeah, this is what folks are receiving on a regular basis. Thank you so much for walking us through that. Okay, and I'm going to wrap up my report there. I'll just point out that there are a few more slides towards the end of the report that show how MCE compares to other CCAs. And if you're interested in looking at that, feel free to peruse these and feel free to reach out if you have questions. But I want to make sure we have time for the important items on our agenda. So I will wrap up at this point and take any questions.
Thank you, Dawn. We'll start with Director Lawrence Galati. Any questions?
I have no questions, and thank you very much for the information. Very helpful.
Great. How about in Concord? Any questions for Dawn?
Through the chair, I just want to share, thank you, Don, for providing this information, because I know there's been a lot just in emails about our finances for some of the public comment. And I think if we do end up having a little extra time at the end of the meeting, if you can go over the rest of the slides, because I think that would be helpful. And if not, Chair, if we can agendize it, if we are unable to finish the rest of the slides, I would like to review it in another meeting if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions from
This is-
Concord?
Director Darling, this is just a question for the CEO, Dawn. I know many people have been worried about our customer-facing programs and whether or not we are going to be reducing those based on the financial results that we're seeing. I'm assuming that we are continuing in our current budget year with all the same programs that we've had in the past.
That is correct.
Okay. And then looking forward, you guys are forecasting what energy demands are going to be and energy costs, and you're confident that we are going to be able to continue the success we've had.
Absolutely. And I want to underline that even during the very high cost of energy that we experienced in our last fiscal year, we ended the year with a net gain. It was less of a net gain than we were expecting, but it was still a net gain. We haven't had to cut any programs, and we don't anticipate that. And we do, sorry, just one
Go
more
ahead.
thing is that the pro forma presentation that we're going to receive from Don DeLessie in a few minutes is going to be looking forward. What is the market looking like? What do we think we might need to consider when we set our budget for next year?
And then we have a rate stabilization fund that helps us balance out in years. And we did not tap into that in spite of the challenges that we faced with the high power costs last year.
Correct.
You know, I just want to say thanks. I think you guys do a great job. I was with DWR back in the white knuckle Enron days where they were having to walk into the room and buy power in real time to keep California on the next day. And Ray and those guys would go in there and know that they had to buy money from these people that were facing them that knew that they had to buy power. And it was a brutal time. It's a volatile industry, and we are learning and growing at MCE to make it better. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, thank you for all the work that staff has done on that.
Thank you, Director Darling. Any other questions or comments from Concord? Seeing none, San Rafael? Yes, go ahead, Director Kohler.
I want to say thank you to Dawn for this information. I think it's really helpful. I'm hoping that we can also post it on the website because I think it's really useful when we have these kind of presentations that people can spend more time on them. So thank you very much for putting it together.
Thank you, Director. Director Wilkinson?
Dawn, thank you for that update. I just had a couple of comments, and the first is, whilst it's really great to see a detailed breakdown versus the budget, it would also be helpful to see that change in energy costs audit to audit, include a detailed breakdown of the different components to help us better understand how those components fit in. The second comment is, I think if, as you say, you're anticipating significant or things change during the fiscal year in a meaningful way, it probably makes sense to bring back a budget amendment so that we're all much more solidified in terms of that expectation rather than just comments made during the meetings. And the third comment is, whilst I understand that the audited financials are not yet available for many of the other CCAs, in 3 months' time when those are, it would be really helpful to come back and then do a complete comparison between MCE and the other CCAs in terms of procurement costs on a multi-year basis, just to see, do we have more volatility than other CCAs? And if we do, why do we? And is that intentional, or were there one-off factors, or are we looking for means to mitigate that volatility if we are out of alignment in relation to the normal performance of other CCAs. Thank you.
Does our CEO want to respond or anyone else, or we can move on?
No, we've got all the suggestions down. Thank you.
Great. Director Andre?
Thank you, Don, for the presentation. A few comments here. One, I think the challenge for the board is that, these slides may have bullet points on the energy cost impact on the budget, but there's no full picture of the budget. And so unless a board member is actually trying to keep track of all of these different costs and the impacts, it's difficult to see, year over year, what the actual impact is of all of these different components of energy. So I would just say that, if we're doing mid-year budget reviews, it would be helpful to see the full statement of change in net position versus the budget. And that way we can easily track what actuals are versus budget. And also I would argue that we should be tracking, performance on a sequentially quarter basis and also on a quarter over quarter basis, because there is seasonality in our energy costs. Secondly, I would say, with respect to the peer analysis, the CCA analysis, I think it's very important to look at our peers and see, how our peers are performing and how MCE's performance is versus the peers. And I believe I gave you this comment in private, but we have to put everyone on the same time frame. So it's a little bit more work. And you're right, the financial statements are only audited once a year, but every CCA publishes quarterly financial statements. And so while the quarterly numbers are not final, there's usually not huge swings from, quarter to audited financial statements. And so, we should be looking at all of the financial statements on the same time period. Otherwise, then we're really not comparing, the numbers over the same time period. And so if you do the analysis, and I haven't done it for all of the metrics that you've shown here, but I've done it for the energy costs for 12 months ended 3/31/2025. And so again, I said this at the board meeting about a month ago, MCE is the outlier in terms of our increase year over year in energy costs. And so that is what's raising concerns for me as a board member and for, others as well. And lastly, I think the S&P default, the chart that you said probability of default by S&P metrics. One good thing about MCE is that we do have strong reserves. And so we have almost $500 million in reserves. And I encourage everyone to look at the treasurer's report every month, because that deals with our investment income. And we have quite a bit in investments. But beyond that, I would say, it's certainly possible for, MCE. We've had 2 consecutive quarters of operating losses. That's a fact. 2 consecutive quarters of operating losses. It's certainly possible that, we've hit a rough patch here, and, the causes of which the board needs to address. And that doesn't mean that, MCE is going to go bankrupt anytime soon, because we do have health reserves. But it also doesn't mean that the directors should just ignore the last 2 quarters of financial performance. That I do think that we really need to get a handle on our energy costs. We need to get a handle on the amount of risk the agency is exposed to. And hopefully we are able to control costs going forward. Because, the $200 million rise in energy costs year over year, I mean, that's ratepayer money. It could have been potentially a lot less. And so that is ratepayer money that isn't otherwise going to programs or rate reductions. And so I think as directors, we should all be concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other final comments from our CEO on the CEO's report in response to any comments from directors?
No, nothing further.
Thank you, Dawn. Next item is the consent agenda. I would like to pull one item, which is the board retreat agenda. I discussed with our CEO. I think it'd be helpful for us to quickly review it and offer any comments, as I've heard some offline. And so I think it'd be helpful to spend a few minutes on that, if that's okay. I also have one comment on item C2 as well, which I can do prior to us voting, but I don't need to pull it off the agenda in the interest of time.
Chair, do you need a motion to make that change to pull that off consent?
Turning to Catalina, do we need a motion and a vote on that, or is it okay just to take something off consent, address it, and then go back and vote?
It is okay to take it off the agenda. Typically, what we do is we pull that item off and then vote or comment on the remaining consent items and then address the item that's been pulled off.
Excellent. Any other items members of the XCOM want to pull? Hearing none.
Here, I just wanted to make
Yep.
some changes. They may have been made already, but the minutes, I think they expressed that Director Quinto was both present and absent at the last meeting. We may want to change that. I don't know. I was not there, so I don't know if you were, but I just wanted to note that for you. And then maybe just a friendly amendment to ensure the director or chair Scales Preston, it says Contra Costa County. It says county right there.
Great,
It
thank
is
you.
hard to be both absent and present.
It's possible. It's possible.
Appreciate that. And those are clerical edits that we can
Thank you.
update and can be included in the motion.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I'll make my comment on C2.
Oh, it's C2.
Yeah, for C2. For I talked to our CEO on this. I have no issue with accepting this grant. However, I think a future work plan item for the XCOM should be, and for staff to support, should be looking at establishing some criteria for accepting contract or signing contracts and accepting grants. I think that accepting a grant from Chevron for this specific project is well within our mission. It supports our programs. It's fantastic. I support it. But I think going forward, we should have some criteria that we should use when reviewing what the requirements are on our end when accepting grants of this sort. You could have a situation, for example, where a Chevron or a competitor, right, could basically ask us to do marketing as part of the grant. And so having some criteria in terms of when and what we accept, I think would be helpful. So just with that comment, I'm happy to move the item.
I'm happy to move, I'm sorry, the consent,
Yep.
C1 and C2.
All right.
With the changes in C1.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. Can we have the roll call, please, for the motion?
Can I confirm second was Murphy? Director Murphy?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Belvedere?
Yes.
Concord?
Yes.
Contra Costa County?
Yes.
Corte Madera?
Yes.
El Cerrito?
Yes.
Fairfax?
Yes.
Larkspur?
Yes.
Mill Valley?
Yes.
Pinal? Pinal?
Yes.
San Rafael?
Yes.
Walnut Creek?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Item C3, turning it over to our CEO. If you can walk us through the agenda and any questions you have for us for bringing this item.
Sure. Just as a reminder, the board retreat is planned starting around spring and summer with input from board members and executive committee members. You may remember us talking about this a few times. We got a lot of good input. There was interest in talking about our procurement and really talking about how we are addressing volatility in the market through load shaping. So that seemed to be a timely theme given the volatility that we've seen in the market. Last year at our board retreat, we talked about market volatility also. But this year, the focus is going to be more of a deep dive into our procurement, really understanding the different layers of how we purchase, how we hedge, what's in our portfolio, what are the different products that we buy, why are we buying the most expensive products, things like that. And then looking at what can we control. We can't control the weather. We can't control when our customers turn on their AC or not. But we do have this exciting new program that we're piloting and hoping to scale up called the virtual power plant that allows us to control when folks are using their appliances, their AC, their HVAC, their EV chargers, and to the extent possible, being able to shift load away from those really hot hours. So it gives us a very powerful tool to help mitigate volatility that we're seeing in the market. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. We had some feedback in our September board meeting that we talk about this exact thing in our retreat. So the good news is that we are planning to do that. I will also spend a bit of time in item 4 where we do the year in review, going through the slides that I just did in the CEO report to help folks see the big picture, what's happening financially, and add a bit to it. So it'll be a little more than what we just covered, just a little bit more detail in there. And then the last thing I want to say is that this packet goes out Thursday. Deadlines for staff to prepare material is long past. We are in the final stages of fine tuning. So if we were to change this agenda in a substantive way, we'd be expecting staff to do new research and analysis and prepare materials in a very short, 2.5-day time frame, which probably isn't the best approach. So if there are things that are not already covered here in the proposed retreat agenda, we may want to consider taking it up at a future meeting. But does that answer your question, Director Prey? Is there any more detail you want me to go into?
Thank you. Maybe if there's any further comments or suggestions from XCOM on this item for staff.
This is
I
Director
just
Darling.
Yeah, Director Darling and then Director Kohler.
I know we've had a lot of discussion about the strategy we use on hedging and why we buy PP1s and not PP3s. Are those issues going to be addressed in the material that you guys have prepared?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so my encouragement to everybody else is one of the most important things for us as a board is to identify policy issues. We are not the procurement specialists, but if you see something else that you think is a policy implication, I encourage you to pass it on to our CEO so that we can focus on what our job is. We don't buy the power. We help them figure out what kind to buy and send them forth to do it. So that's my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, and just to confirm, Don, you're looking for approval, correct? It says review draft, but you're looking for us to approve this with a motion?
Yes, that'd be correct, Chair. Since we've pulled this off of consent, we do need to make a motion, and it should be clear that there are no changes if that motion is to approve it.
Okay.
Director Darling, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve the draft agenda.
Thank you, Director Darling. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, Director Andre has a comment. I'm sorry, I missed her earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
Great, sorry. Thank you, Director Perret. Yeah, I was just going to say that, I do want to thank staff for putting on the energy costs and procurement on the strategic retreat agenda. I think that's going to be a really important item, and really look forward to the discussion with staff and the entire board. Just in light of some of a lot of the public comment letters that have come in raising issues around board governance. I was wondering, when should we I feel like we as a board should discuss the items that have been, or the issues that have been raised in some of these letters. And and if that's done at the strategic retreat where everybody's face to face, I think that could be helpful, or, if we schedule it for a different time. But I do think it's important that we take the time to talk through some of the issues that have been raised. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. I would encourage us today to focus on the Finance Committee, which is one of our items, reviewing what we did last year, and then for the other items, I would suggest maybe we agendize for a future XCOM meeting, because we usually recommend to the board on items like that versus the board kind of recommending to us. Don, is that okay with you on that?
That seems like a great approach to me.
Okay, great. All right, I heard a motion from Director Darling. Is there a second?
I'll second. Barbara Kohler.
Director Kohler seconded. Can we have the roll call?
Chair, can I interrupt? I apologize. I believe we had a motion already on the table, and that was by Director Darling and then seconded by Director Nakamura. Is that?
Oh, no, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I didn't hear the second.
Pardon me.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Never mind. We can move forward. Thank you.
Yep.
So just to clarify, it was Director Darling and Director Murphy.
Director Darling and Director Nakamura seconded.
I think we're all okay with moving forward. It was Director Darling and Director Murphy that originally made
Oh,
the
Murphy.
motion, but we're all okay. We support that.
Excellent.
Yes.
Everyone seconds. Thank you, Director Murphy.
Thank you. Belvedere,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Corte Madera,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Pinal,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Clerk. All right, next item is 8B, which we have moved up, which is the committee structure discussion and reviewing our action from last December, which at the time was to not establish a finance committee for the full board. I see this as a few different options ahead of us. Obviously, we can proceed as things are now, keeping the finance functions under the executive committee. One suggestion that has come forward is changing the name of the executive committee to either be executive and finance or finance and executive. We could also establish an ad hoc committee as another option of the executive committee or of the executive and finance committee focused on finance that reports to this committee or reports on recommendations for items for this committee to proceed with. Just a reminder that ad hoc committees are not permanent, they're not long-standing, and they have a specific purpose. And so there's some limitations with that, just to keep in mind. And then lastly, we can recommend, I believe it would be a recommendation to the board to establish a standing committee, which would be a finance committee. It's also been suggested maybe finance and audit committee could be a name that would be a standing committee separate from this. And just to keep in mind, as staff has reminded us and our legal clerk has reminded us, a majority of this board, of this committee, could not be a majority of that committee. So just to keep in mind, there would have to be some difference in membership. So those are the options I see. If there's any additional options that members wish to recommend, that is also fine. I have checked in with our CEO. We are, even though it's listed as a discussion item, if there can be motions, this can be action or direction to staff to come back, or direction to create an ad hoc committee to come back with recommendations at a future XCOM meeting. So with that, I don't know, Dawn, did you or other members of staff wish to share anything on this item, or would you like us to move into discussion?
I think we have a raised hand here.
Yes, go ahead.
You. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I made the suggestion of the directors considering executive and finance committee, or it could be finance and executive committee, however, which way you want to word it. You know, I know a little over a year and a half ago, we have voted on this. and we had a hard time in the past of trying to get enough directors to be on both the executive committee as well as the TechCom committee. And so I just want to make sure we have enough directors that's available, one, and then two, a lot of our cities, are so different throughout each of our counties and cities. And I just, it's important for each of us to know what's going on when it comes to the finances as well as executive committee issues. And so I think it's important that all of us are involved in this and being transparent. Even more so now that there are some letters that have been coming in for public comment over the weekend. So my suggestion would be adding, executive and finance committee as the title. If that means that we are reviewing more finance type issues, then great. And, when we can take deeper dives, I think it benefits everyone. And that's transparent for all of our communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would recommend maybe we go, I'll just call on each individual member, if that is okay. That way we can make sure that all voices are heard. And I'll start with Concord, since the chair started us off. I'll turn to Director Quinto. Do you have any comments? And feel free also to ask staff any questions in this time, and then we'll go to public comment once we do a round, and then we'll see if there's a motion on the table. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I am going to support adding finance to the executive committee. So either finance executive committee or executive committee finance, either way is fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Darling?
Hi, I was on XCOM last year when we went through this issue, and we had a lot of really good hard rationale as to why we wanted to keep it together. So I will be supporting renaming our committee Executive and Finance, or Finance and Executive, or XFine, or whatever we want to call ourselves.
Thank you. Director Nakamura?
I will be supporting that as well. The combination of the finance and executive committee.
Okay. Director Murphy, any comments or
I'm okay
questions?
I'm okay with either or. As I've heard before, I think there's a particular interest in understanding financials more. So if there were a different committee outside of exec committee for financials, I would want to understand, of course, like the difference in scope. As I see the staff report here, it seems like our executive committee does have the jurisdiction over finance and budget. And so that's a large scope in itself. And so I just want to make sure like we understand what that separation would be. But I'm open to both. And certainly I serve on several committees already. So I'm not necessarily needing to add another committee to my plate. But certainly would love to dig into and leverage this committee to talk more about budget.
And I'm happy to answer the question about scope. That's a fair question. If we were to separate the finance function into a separate committee, we would not have different information to present and discuss. We would simply be presenting and discussing it in a different group. If there's an interest in additional information being presented, that could certainly come to XCOM or a finance committee. But I just want to clarify, I think some folks that are making a suggestion of a finance committee maybe imagine it as a committee that might talk about something different than what the executive committee is already covering. And that wouldn't be the case as far as scope. It's really just whether we want finance to be together with XCOM or whether we want finance to be separate from XCOM.
Thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that.
Thank you, Director Murphy. We'll go to San Rafael. Micah, do you want to go before or after San Rafael? Up to you.
Sure. Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. Thank you very much. I agree that we participated on the discussion last year around forming the different committees that we had at reviewing that. I believe if we will have a new finance committee, we probably will have the same people in that committee as well. So given that the finances are reviewing the executive committee, I would suggest that if anybody needs more information or more details, that they bring it up to our executive committee. And I definitely agree with changing the name and adding financial executive committee to the title. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Wilkinson?
Sure, I can go next. So I was one of the committee ExCom members last year that voted in support of formation of a finance committee. And I did want to provide some background as to what happened after that, because a subset of ExCom then presented as an alternative a list of increased financial disclosures, which we were hoping could be brought to ExCom on a regular basis. And we gave those to the CEO, and all of those suggestions were rejected at the time. And so we didn't see any increase in financial transparency, which we were hoping could therefore stay within ExCom. That's my first point. My second point is that we are out of line with the other large CCAs. And I think the letter that came from the Marine Conservation League had a table there which showed what the best practices are amongst the main CCAs, which is to have both an executive committee and a separate finance committee, and I believe in some cases a finance and audit committee. And my understanding is that some of those CCAs use the finance committee more as a sort of testing ground, as a first round to review the standard things that come to ExCom, like budgets and rates, but also to do a much deeper dive into risk modeling, hourly accounting, a whole bunch of other things which we certainly don't see right now come before the executive committee here. I just feel strongly that our main role as board members in general is to provide fiduciary oversight. And I do not believe that we are providing that to an adequate level right now. It isn't sufficient to say the auditors gave us a clean audit and they're providing oversight. That's not what auditors do. They're just assessing whether the audit is clean from a presentation perspective. And so our job is really to make sure that we believe our policies and strategies are in line with the goals of the agency and serving the mission and serving the public good in terms of the people who put us into office. I don't believe that we're doing that to the strong enough level right now on the financial side, and I do believe a finance committee could add weight to that. I also feel that in terms of the executive committee now, we don't meet every month. It's probably every 2 months that we meet, and the meeting is restricted to 2 hours. And it just feels like there is too much content that could be brought that would fit into those 2 hours, and it might make sense to separate off the first testing of the key financial items and then additional financial items into a finance committee. And finally, I do think that you could form a finance committee with a largely different membership from ExCom. We have 34 directors and 34 alternates, and every city also has financial expertise within their agency. And so I think amongst that very large group of people, you could put together a group where there is a higher level of financial expertise that could drill more successfully into some of the factors that are affecting MCE. I think more than ever right now, we have seen a difficult financial period. And so more disclosure to me would be critical, and ideally in a separated finance committee. I don't think just rename a committee finance and executive does a damn thing unless the result of that is that far more financial information is going to come before that committee. I just don't see how you can do the depth of work that is required, not to do what staff does, but to provide effective fiduciary oversight, which is our obligation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Beckman?
Yeah, thank you. I think my interest is less in the philosophy or semantics of committee name and structure than in the question of what work is being done, what information is being presented, what conversations are happening. Um, you know, I think it's clear to me that a number of board members and a number of members of our public do feel that there is a level of rigor in our financial oversight or reporting that is lacking. And I think my question is what is or isn't going to change on the ground in terms of how we operate here at our meetings in response to those concerns. And I don't feel that simply appending "and finance" to the name of our executive committee is going to address those concerns. I'd like to see us actually move in a way, make concrete changes to the way that we're operating that will address those concerns and help bring concerned individuals along with us, in understanding what the true nature of MCE's finances and operations and oversight is, and making sure that we can all arrive at a place where everybody, board member and members of the public alike, feel comfortable with what's going on at MCE. So that's where I'm at. I think again, I'm much more interested in having a discussion around what, if anything, do we want to see change in terms of how we operate, as a board, rather than what are going to be the names or structures of our various standing committees.
Thank you, Director Andre.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the comments of those before me. I do want to stress a point that I think, as directors, we do have a duty of governance and oversight over the agency, and that is on behalf of the public. That is a duty that we cannot delegate to management. We cannot delegate it to the auditors. We cannot delegate it to financial consultants. The auditors, their job is to make sure that the financial statements are accurate and precise. And theoretically, we could lose $500 million next year and they would give us a clean audit because they said, yes, that is what happened. So the auditors do not provide fiduciary oversight, over the agency. It's all of us. And I think from what I hear from the letters from the public, they are urging the board to please exercise in fiduciary oversight. And that means that we have an obligation to engage in active oversight, which is not just passively receiving information or just approving what comes before the board. It means that we are not choosing to ignore red flags, and we're not choosing to close our eyes to what might be difficult or concerning information. This is a critical time for MCE. There's a lot that's happened in the last year since this was last discussed. Again, we've had the surge in energy prices. We've had 2 consecutive quarters of operating losses, and our ratepayers are paying some of the highest premiums above the host utility. And so I really, and at the same time, MCE lacks a lot of the checks and balances that other agencies and frankly our peer CCAs have. And so, there's no CEO, or I'm sorry, there's no CFO. We don't have a finance committee. And this year there was no ad hoc audit committee. And so a lot of the regular checks and balances don't exist. And so I think, the creation of a finance committee would allow those on the board who are interested or have the background in finance to really drill down on a regular and routine basis. I mean, this is how you catch a lot of the red flags early. Is there's a regular review of all of the financials, not just the high level review, but that you drill down into the details and that you do it regularly so that any sort of variances or anything of concern comes up, and that, it comes up in the committee and the committee can raise it to executive committee or the larger board. And so, my vote would be that we create the finance committee, and that people who are interested in doing the work. I mean, I've heard also from other directors that, that there's already too many numbers, and it's hard to understand all the numbers that are, that are being presented, and I can understand that. But at the same time, we in terms of executing our fiduciary duty, I think we need to be looking at the numbers and we need to be drilling down. And that way, it gives the public some level of comfort that, we are doing our jobs. So I hope that the board will heed a lot of the concerns that are being brought forth, and that we will actually take some action, as Director Beckman said earlier, that we will actually take some concrete action to help address some of these concerns. Thank you.
And
Thank
Chair,
you,
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that you and the committee is aware that we do have a presenter here from Pacific Energy Advisors to talk about, I think, what we're all very, very interested in, to talk about our energy costs so far, our Q1 report, looking at forward projections to help us prepare for budget planning next year. And I just want to make sure we don't run out of time to hear this really important presentation that he put together for us. So I would defer to you on how you want to handle that. Just wanted to do a time check.
Understood, and thank you for the reminder. We started off the meeting saying we're going to try to welcome all voices, so we'll continue this round, having everyone have one pass, then we'll go to public comment, then we'll come back, we'll see if there's a motion. If there's not, then we'll move on. But just a reminder to members of the XCOM to be as concise as possible, because we do have a packed agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Just based on that, I would consider that maybe we ought to move the Code of Ethics to another meeting. But I just want to say, I sat on an executive committee for many years and stepped off for about a year and a half because of the conflict that was with the schedule change. So I've sat through many XCOM meetings as well as many board meetings for many, many years, and also served as mayor several times in Fairfax, where we do have a finance committee, but we don't meet every month and we don't meet every quarter even. I think there's a couple of things that we could do, and that is, I came into this thinking very strongly that we needed a finance committee, and I hear a lot from the Concord office that there's a lot of ideas that maybe we just add finance to the name of XCOM. And I think since the XCOM doesn't meet necessarily every month, one of the things we could do is, if we decided, and I have a feeling the vote may go that way if there is a vote, that we would, if the vote goes the way of adding finance to exec, is that we have specifically, instead of canceling a meeting, that every quarter, XCOM specifically does a deep dive into budget issues. And I think that's kind of a compromise approach to trying to create a new standing committee where there might be some quorum issues. And I can say that not necessarily always having financial expertise is what you need. There's a lot of common sense built into what we do, and people with financial expertise may also have different financial expertise. So if we were to create a separate standing committee, and I'm not sure where I am right now, I would say that we don't necessarily need to pack it with 8 people. We need to think about just a few people. And that finance committee could meet with key staff to go over some deep dives. But if we decided to do that, then I would say that those folks should not be on XCOM. And we also should look at XCOM to see if there are other roles we would want to add. But I think kind of a middle ground is to start out with the idea of adding finance to XCOM, and then every quarter, that's all we do in XCOM, is we do a deep dive into finances, so that we're not, this meeting agenda is pretty packed and we can't necessarily get it done in 2 hours, so that we're not necessarily just short shrift. Since we do cancel XCOM almost every other month, I think there's a way to do both and see how that goes, and then revisit it in 6 months or 8 months. So that's my thought.
Thank you, and I'll just keep my my comments very brief. I do support a standing finance committee. I brought this up 2 years ago. I supported it last year. I think it would be helpful to have a separate committee that's smaller, that's focused on finance. thinking maybe five board members maximum. I think you wouldn't have a challenge of quorum in that case. And we have, as I think one of the other directors mentioned, we have 34 members of the board, right? So I think looking outside of this committee for members to populate that, and if members left this committee or left TechCom to join Finance Committee, finding others who would want to be added to this committee. For example, we have no one from Solano or Napa County on this committee. So looking for some of them to serve on here. Also alternates, right? We've had alternates serve on committees. So that could be a place as well to find folks who would serve on it. That said, if the votes aren't there and the members don't support a separate standing committee, I agree with Director Kohler that having a process and a timeline where we take a deeper dive and address the things that otherwise a finance committee would address is good. Just noting that, folks join XCOM for a range of reasons, not just finance. Since we do cover legislation, we oversee our CEO and do the annual eval. We do awards for honorary awards. We do a lot of different things. And so oftentimes agendas are packed. They have a diverse set of items, and we do have a pretty big XCOM, obviously smaller than the full board, but it is pretty big. And so just doing this round of everyone commenting, right, on an agenda, it takes a lot of time. And so I think having a separate standing committee would make more sense, both to free up XCOM and to have a more focused FinCom. That said, if the XCOM doesn't agree, then I think having a quarterly deep dive does make more sense. All right, we'll go to members of the public. Are there members of the public in San Rafael who wish to comment? Yes, go ahead. And in the interest of time, I asked XCOM members to be concise. You do have 3 minutes, but if it's not too much, to keep concise comments as well. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Bob.
So my name is Robert Miller. I'm with the Marin Conservation League, and you received a letter from Marin Conservation League strongly recommending establishing a standing finance committee and hiring a CFO, and overall creating much more financial transparency. We were alarmed by MCE's failure to flag and adequately discuss the large quarterly operating loss and fiscal year operating loss. And regardless of why the operating losses occurred, the fact is that the board and the public didn't learn about these losses in a timely way. It was late August, 5 months after the close of the fiscal year. The key challenge that this board faces in governing is information asymmetry. Wonky term, but it's that management and staff have lots of detailed and sometimes complicated financial and procurement information and analysis, and the board and the public have much less. And it makes it really hard for board members to engage in active oversight and to govern. And the other 9 top CCAs all established finance committees to help reduce that information asymmetry between management and staff and boards and increase financial transparency precisely so their boards could govern better. And the possibility of MCE Executive Committee taking on the task was discussed late last year, and it did not happen. It did not happen. Moreover, it's unfair to executive committee members without some financial expertise or keen interest in finances. It's unfair to other board members who do have that expertise and interest and could make a real contribution and help the rest of the board. So that arrangement will do less to reduce the information and analysis gap between management, staff, and the board. So in short, we strongly support Standing Finance Committee. A vote for a Standing Finance Committee is a vote to improve MCE governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to provide comment in San Rafael? Yep. Go ahead, Dan. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Dan Segadin. I want to provide a positive vision of what a finance committee working with management can achieve. One key foundational goal of any finance committee is to understand the financial results and communicate them in a clear and simple manner to the board. Best practice is clear. Provide regular and timely, consistent reports or graphs that explain the actual financial results. This creates a virtuous cycle. The consistency of the reports through time creates a common framework and a common language that accelerates understanding. When the board sees the same reports every month or quarter, they're ready. They've seen it before. They've discussed it before. This greatly improves the board's ability to have a meaningful impact. It also leverages management's time. With good systems, they press a button and the reports come out. It leverages board time. The board can actually address more meaty questions that have some potential to actually improve MCE instead of struggling to understand the latest graph in front of you that you've never seen before. I see some of that struggle now, today. There's inconsistent, wide-ranging slides from different years on many different topics that are hard to piece together. We need more consistency, more common understanding. As an example, energy costs are roughly 94% of MCE's costs. Understanding them is essential. There's 6 major components. Let's assume a finance committee decides to have a consistent graph that shows the 6 components trended quarterly for the last 2 years. Simple, but right away you have 2 breakthroughs. You are seeing all the components that add up to total energy cost, and you are seeing the historical trend of each component. By analogy, instead of seeing just total personnel cost, you see trended graphs of total number of employees, average salary per employee, and benefits. The components matter. Back to energy. As you visually see the changes in the 6 components and hear them explained over time, your understanding deepens. You are more informed, you ask better questions, you make better suggestions. Management gets better too. They anticipate questions, cover them in the commentary, because they already know what questions the graphs are going to raise. The whole conversation elevates. MCE gets better. And this all starts with timely, consistent financial reports that promote a common understanding of financial performance. This is where we have to go. It's where we need to go. I urge you to support a standing finance committee. And if you want to combine this with XCOM, just realize that's a huge change. That's what we decided a year ago. It didn't happen. There's been absolutely no change. So I highlight the directors who say this has to be quarterly, it has to be real, and it's going to take a lot of extra exec committee time, which I don't think is fair to the exec committee. We'll be monitoring this to make sure we're up to this if this change does occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other members of the public in San Rafael? Seeing none. Any in Concord?
There are no members of the public in Concord.
Thank you. How about on Zoom?
Yes, we have a member of the public, Jody Timms.
Go ahead, Jody. You have 3 minutes.
Hello again. So, I want to represent the voice of a lot of us in the community who are activists and organizers and on the front lines. We do this work because of climate change, and we all know we are facing a really dire situation, not just in Marin, obviously, but around the world. We need programs. We need to help individuals move toward initiatives, including electrification, but many others that can support addressing the issues of climate change. That's why I do the work I do with a lot of nonprofits locally and with a lot of local government leaders and climate leaders. So in my work, the other CCAs are offering more community-facing programs. Given the federal and even the state financial constrictions we're all facing, we really need to know as the public that MCE is doing all they can to work very carefully with their finances and offer to the community as much resources and programs as are possible. I also work with the Fairfax Climate Action Committee. I chair that. I work with all of the local advisory groups dealing with climate and our local communities. I facilitate a monthly meeting with a lot of climate leaders. We need to support, and our main goal very often is engaging the public. And in order to do that, we need to give them the sense that there are resources and support behind the work that needs to be done around climate change. I just simply can't imagine an organization the size and with the budget that MCE has that would not have a CFO in place and a standing finance committee. It's primarily a financial organization. And I just really urge you, if you don't take that step now, to consider doing it in the future, because I want to be able to represent MCE and I want to talk about what programs there are. It's not even easy to go to the website and figure out what the programs are and what low income or other folks those programs offer and at what time of year, under what situations. It's not a simple process. So I really, and I feel I need you need the financial data in order to support programs. So that's my plea. Please think about doing this at some point soon and reach out to the community more so you can help us help all the individuals in this county that want, and across the Bay Area, that want to make a difference when it comes to climate change. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jody. Any other commenters online?
I see no raised hands, Chair.
All right. Thank you. Bringing it back. Yes, Director Beckman.
Thanks. Look, I have every confidence in in staff's financial oversight of this agency, but what I feel that I'm hearing from members of the public is a desire for our board to step up in a more serious way and provide more hands-on fiscal oversight. So in light of these comments, I would move that we create a standing finance committee, which will be able to focus on that work.
All right, we have a motion from Director Beckman. Does someone want to second that motion?
I think didn't we have a motion on the table earlier?
No, we have not had a motion yet.
Yeah, we did. I made a motion when we first started.
There was, I don't believe that was that captured as a motion? Turning to our,
That was captured as a motion.
can our attorney or clerk weigh in on that, please?
I'm sorry, I don't have the recall for that, but I'm happy to defer to the folks that made the motion and seconded. My understanding is Director Skills Preston, you made a motion, and Director Quinto, you seconded it. Great. I'm happy to say that motion's on the table. We are allowed to have more than one motion on the table. So if there is another motion, we can, or we could move to vote on that first.
I'm sorry, I'm asking Director Beckman if he would like it to be a substitute motion if we're.
And you'll have to educate me on the parliamentary procedure here. What are the implications of a substitution motion?
It's just a substitute motion, and then we vote on yours, and then we vote on the first one, I believe.
Sure, then I will make my original, my prior stated motion as a substitute motion.
Okay, is there a second for the substitute motion?
I would like to second that, Wilkinson.
Yep.
Can I also just make a final comment, which is that it's very quick. Fiduciary oversight isn't just to protect the board, it's to protect management. And so again, I fully support forming a standing finance committee.
Okay. We're at time here. So are folks okay if we go straight to roll call? I know parliamentary procedure, we're supposed to have a discussion on these items.
I do
Okay.
have one question before we.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. This is Director Nakamura. My question to staff is, I did appreciate the comment from Director Kohler about having quarterly financial deeper dives for the XCOM Finance Committee. So my question to staff is, if we keep it as one, having a combined title, can that be done?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Catalina, I see you.
Yeah, so for clarification on procedure, we vote on the last motion that has been made, and so that is from Director Beckman. But I'd like to make a clarification here. The executive committee can make a recommendation to the full board to create a standing committee. That power does not live in the executive committee on its own.
Understood.
Okay, so I will amend my motion to move that we recommend creation of a standing finance committee. Thank you, Catalina.
And I will second that.
All right, can we have the roll call on the substitute motion?
Belvedere,
Yes.
Concord,
No.
Contra Costa County,
No.
Corte Madera,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
No.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
Mill Valley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Do we vote on the second motion, or because this one, it's done? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Just acknowledging Director Beckman has to leave. We will, for the, does this come back? I would recommend, I can talk to staff online, but I would recommend we bring back some function of this to our next XCOM meeting to discuss. What do folks think? Or is this going to be, because it's going to be a recommendation to the board, but we don't have any particulars in terms of how often it meets, how many people we want on it, what it's actually doing, how it's different from XCOM.
So I would suggest that we form a small task force to work with staff to come back with a recommendation to the full board in terms of what that structure and cadence and everything else would look like.
Okay.
This is Director Darling.
Yeah.
I think it's an XCOM function, not a small subcommittee.
Okay.
I absolutely agree, but it's just to come back with instead of us doing this on the fly, just to come back with some recommendations for XCOM to then drill into.
We've just taken an hour to pass through this when we could have been getting the kind of information that we're looking for. I want to make sure we're being efficient on this, but I don't know if a subcommittee is the right way to do that.
Could
Okay.
I make a proposal for the
Yep,
committee
please.
to consider? So while we had Dr. Scales Preston's motion to just make the committee be executive and finance, and then we have the motion that passed that we recommend to the board, the committee could also vote on the motion to have it be a recommendation that we just change the committee to executive and finance. And if that passes, we could bring both motions to the next regular board meeting, and the board can make a decision to either change the name or to create a finance committee. And then that would give direction to staff to bring something back to the full executive committee to dive deep in on whatever is the resulting moment.
I would not support that because we do have one director who has left.
Chair, I think we should vote on the motion, both motions, though. I think the vote that we're making right now is a recommendation to bring the conversation back to the board. I mean, it seems a bit unfair to vote on both motions. I mean, excuse me, to vote on only one motion.
correct.
Perhaps we should vote on the second motion. I mean, inevitably, this conversation needs to be brought back to the board to decide. That's what I'm seeing and hearing. And otherwise, I mean, I particularly thank you, Ms. Murphy, for that, because I thought we were voting on both motions. I see this as a board level conversation at this point. It'd be great to focus on this at the executive com, but this is the second time we're coming to this conversation, and it seems like there seems to be yeah, I mean, it seems like even if we voted this way and we didn't vote on the second motion, we wouldn't close the conversation. So I feel more comfortable if we voted on both motions. And then again, this is a board conversation. Let's have the board vote on whether or not there should be a finance committee of our board.
Yeah. So the motion that passed is a substitute motion. My understanding is usually substitute motions, if they conflict with the original motion and it passes, we don't proceed to the second motion. But
okay,
I mean, turning to our attorney, if you're saying differently, if we're supposed to be voting on two different motions,
because
they're in conflict. The two motions are in conflict, and the second one did pass.
Okay.
I think because it's a recommendation to the board, there can be multiple recommendations being brought forward to the board. And it sounds like that's what the distinction is. So because we're not making a final decision for XCOM, it's a advisory vote.
Yeah. I do see Director Lauren Scoletti's hand raised, so I do want to go to her. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I also support the vote for the first motion, and I would like to add that I really like the proposal from Barbara Kohler from Fairfax, and wondering if it would be okay to include it in the first motion, where there will be like a quarterly meeting once a quarter to review budget, whether it's in the Finance Executive Committee or whether it's a separate financial committee.
Yeah, and Chair, when I first made the motion in the beginning, I shared the same thing of, you know, we can discuss only finance items during if we change the name to Executive and Finance Committee meeting, and we can have less items so that we can make sure that we're getting through all of these different finance issues. But I do think it's important to all of us. Here in Contra Costa County we represent 1.3 million people here, and these people who are sitting here on the executive committee, myself, I mean, you have Walnut Creek, which is probably about 70,000 people. You have Concord, which is the largest city here in Contra Costa County with probably about 125,000 people. Just my district alone, for District 5, I represent 290,000 people. And when I talk to constituents each and every day, as one member from the public was sharing, they're concerned about, programs and how they can stay above and keep above water. I represent a community that is the disadvantaged community, that is the most vulnerable population here in District 5. And so I want to make sure that these communities are not being left out, so that we are focusing on programming as we are looking at finance and the numbers. And I would hope everyone who has been appointed to serve to represent their councils or county supervisor positions, that they are here and they are being involved into the work. And so if that means that we need to meet monthly, then we should do so for us to take a dive into the finances or executive committee items. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I think we've made a recommendation to the board. I think the alternatives and how we got there will be in the staff report when we present it. We can obviously, if the board chooses not to proceed with a standing finance committee, then we can look at changing the name, which I think would probably be just on our end, right? Because it's our committee, or maybe we make another recommendation. But we did
But we would
vote
still
on the
touch on all
substitute
of
measure.
those items that the public is concerned about within changing the name, so that we are restructuring our board so that we are touching on those items.
Yeah, but we did just vote 6-5 to make a recommendation to the board. I don't think we can make multiple recommendations, right? They're in conflict. The two motions are in conflict.
Chair, I'd like to
Yeah.
weigh in here. I do think that having a staff report that goes to the board that has two recommendations or two alternatives for how the board looks at this is important. And I would like to move that we make a secondary motion that there's the one motion that's already passed about giving the board the decision of whether we create an additional finance committee. But I think that the board should also hear that there was strong interest from the executive committee to make it a combination with quarterly deeper dives into finances. And so I would like that to be very clear when this goes to the full board. So that would be my motion, that we do an additional recommendation to the full board.
And I will second that if that is a motion. I think this is not black and white. The vote was 6-5. And I think the board needs to understand the conversations that we had here today. So in order to make a better decision.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We do have a director who needs to walk out. So in the interest of time, I'll cut off discussion. We'll do a roll call on this. And we'll bring it back in November to XCOM to discuss how these different pieces will work, and then we'll present those to the board at a future meeting. Does that work for folks? because there's a number of details in both of these motions that aren't finalized. And so rather than having that be a board discussion, we should iron out some of those specifics before presenting. Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Just a request to clearly restate the motion, please.
The motion that I'm making is to, when this goes to the full board, have it known that the conversation here with XCOM was that there was strong interest for a combined XCOM Finance Committee, and the other recommendation being whether we create a separate Finance Committee.
I think just to add, Director Nakamura, I think you also included the idea that if the motion would be finance and XCOM, or XCOM and finance, with a quarterly deep dive into finances.
Yes, thank you, Director Kohler. I did want to incorporate that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have the roll call, please?
Belvedere,
No.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County,
Yes.
Corte Madera,
Sure.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Larkspur,
No.
Mill Valley,
No.
Pinole,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our next item, we have the MCE fiscal year 26 pro forma update. I believe we have a guest presenter for this item.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is John DeLessie. I am founder and CEO of Pacific Energy Advisors. I've been in this industry really my entire career, going back 35 years. Started off at Southern California Edison back in the early 1990s. It's been a while. That's what I used to look like about 15 years ago when MCE started up. So I've had broad experience. I've really been worked on most sort of sides of the electric power industry in California, from the regulated utility side to the competitive side, and started consulting about 20 years ago now, and worked with the County of Marin to set up the first CCA program ever, which of course is you all. And have really been specialized in supporting CCA programs really since that time. So without further ado, I want to talk about the pro forma outlook, or the budget outlook for the current fiscal year. If we can advance that slide. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the model, the pro forma model. And this is used to support the budget process. The model is a comprehensive financial model that really seeks to predict monthly revenues and monthly power costs. It incorporates a large number of inputs. It incorporates, on the revenue side, MC's rates, sales, projected sales volume by the different customer classifications and the different product choices that customers make. It incorporates all of the power supply contracts that are in place, their costs, the expected volumes that are associated with those contracts, and other costs related to charges from the California Independent System Operator. And finally, it incorporates assumptions around market prices for the various energy products. So there's energy, there's resource adequacy, there's renewable energy, carbon-free energy, a whole host of different products that go into MC's portfolio, supply portfolio, and ultimately into the budget. So this model is updated every month as we get actual prices, actual financial results, new contracts, new market outlook assumptions. We're updating every month and comparing to the actuals that have taken place to try and identify if there is a variance, what is it explainable. The version of the model usually that's used for the budget is around the February timeframe, and that's true for the current budget. So the assumptions that were current as of February of this year is what is reflected in the current budget. We can go to the next one, please. So in terms of the key uncertainties in the modeling or in the budget estimates, we can start on the revenue side. Given a set of rates that MCE has established, really the main driver of revenue and revenue variances is going to be sales volume, and that is heavily influenced by weather, particularly during the summer period. That's where the load, the customer usage is going to be most variable and sensitive to whether we have, a hot June, a cool June, et cetera. It's also variances in the summertime are also magnified on the revenue side because of the seasonal rate structure that MCE and just about every other CCA has, right? The rates are higher on just an average per megawatt hour basis, per kilowatt hour basis than they are in the non-summer months. And so those summer months are June through September. Other factors that will drive revenue and revenue variances, of course, is just your customer participation, changes in net energy metering participation, right? Where if you get more and more households putting rooftop solar on their homes, these are going to impact revenue. Those tend to be a little bit more predictable. Customer counts tend to be pretty stable other than when we're looking at an expansion period. And of course, that's planned for. And net energy metering has really trended up considerably in recent years, but I think with the NEM 3.0 and the changes that have been made to how net energy metering is compensated, that the pace of the increases has slowed way down. So these are a factor, but like I said, more of a predictable factor. Now on power costs, we have more factors that impact variances on power costs. First one is differences between the contracted energy volumes, right? So the supply and actual demand. And so this can be either open positions that were maybe existed at the time the budget was set. So, let's say we knew we wanted to buy 100 megawatts of something, and at that time we had 90. That meant, 10 was open, yet to be purchased. So that would be one source of kind of that difference between demand and supply. And then the other type would be unplanned imbalances. So this is just where either your demand is different than you expected. Maybe it was an extremely hot day or extremely hot month relative to historical norms, or supply is also variable. A lot of MC's contracts have fixed supply volumes, but many, particularly you can think of a renewable energy contract with a solar field, those are as available as the facilities produce energy, so there's variation there. So that would be unplanned variations or imbalances. So anytime there's a difference between how much energy you have contracted and locked down at fixed costs versus what you actually need, that's going to be a source of potential deviations. Related to that would be the prices at which the deviations or the imbalances are settled. So if, let's say, demand spikes because of a heat wave and prices in the well, I'll say CAISO, right, for California Independent System Operator, if prices in the CAISO market spike, then those imbalances will increase your costs more than just they would if prices hadn't spiked. Happens on the reverse side too. If usage is lower than expected, you would expect your power cost to be lower, right? Because that excess energy is essentially sold back to the CAISO at CAISO markets. but the price at which that power is liquidated in the CAISO market is variable. If prices are high, you're going to have a large reduction in your power costs, but if prices are low or sometimes even negative, not so much, right? Another driver on the power supply side would be the difference in prices between locations on the grid. And the CAISO market is what's known as a nodal market. There's not a single price for energy in this market. There's actually about 5,000 different prices for energy. And when you are buying from the market, so the prices that load settles at in this market, it's based on an aggregation of essentially all the supply points within the PG&E territory, within the PG&E footprint. So that's how load is settled. Supply is settled at the location, at the nodal price, so at the individual location of MCE supply sources. And I know, we've had certain projects, for instance, that have had a lot of congestion, meaning a lot of low or very negative prices at those locations during solar hours. That's an example of even if you think you're essentially covered, you think your demand and your supply match in terms of volume, they don't necessarily match when the dollars roll through because the prices can be different, right? So that's basically, you can just think of that as congestion. And then the last factor that can change cost relative to expectations would be the timing of deliveries under certain generally renewable energy contracts. We know this happened in a pretty significant way in the shifting costs from the current fiscal year into the prior fiscal year. I think it's been talked about. There was a large contract with PG&E, and it was for 2025, calendar year 2025 renewable energy. And PG&E delivered all of that energy in the first 4 months of 2025. So 3 of those months are in the prior fiscal year. So relative to expectations, dollars were shifted from the current year to the prior year, and that was one of the reasons why the budget variance last year was so high. There are other factors too, but we will benefit from that this year, right? So that's just more of an accounting treatment more than anything else. Let's go to the next one, please. So, okay. Interesting how times have changed. I was, I think, speaking at this committee a year ago, maybe a little less than that. And I was talking about how prices were increasing and kind of gave it a market outlook. Much better story today, thankfully. Things are actually very good in the energy markets for buyers, which of course we are. Summer this year was unusually mild from just a weather perspective, and so loads on the system were low, and that really kind of eliminated what we sometimes see is heat wave driven price spikes and a lot of just high cost in the CAISO market. We really didn't have any of that this year. The weather was remarkably mild. Yes, thank you. This wood or for Mike or whatever it is, but we're going to knock on it. Hydroelectric supplies are healthy still. The reservoirs are relatively full, and natural gas storage levels are also healthy. So those are two sort of, they're almost like energy storage in a way. They're two cushions to potential supply shortages and price spikes. So looking at forward energy prices for CAISO energy, just compared to a year ago, you can buy kind of those prices are down about 19%. So just plain old CAISO energy prices are much reduced from a year ago. And when we look at renewable energy and resource adequacy, both of those products, those prices have absolutely collapsed from where they were last year. Now, last year was ugly. We'll get to that, but it's almost a return to normal, which is wonderful. So I've got here my last bullet that the markets have stabilized, but I do have, in parens for now. But we had extreme volatility, really the last couple of years and last year in particular. All right. Clean energy prices. I think you may have seen some variation on the slide before, but just want to focus really on that top bar chart. So we're showing the price of short-term renewable energy. This would be, what's known as PCC1. This is the primary renewable energy that MCE buys, other than its long-term contracts. And the price of that product really started spiking, and it kind of started picking up in 2023, but it really increased in 2024. And when I say really increased, it increased by about 500%. So that was, I've been in this business a long time. I've been through, the energy crisis, the DWR days of 2000, 2001. I was there for that. Fun couple of PG&E bankruptcies, the heat wave, the September 2023, the gas crisis of December 22. So, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've never seen renewable energy prices go this high. So this truly was unprecedented. And when you think about it, MCE is 65% of every of all the sales that MCE makes is renewable energy. So you have the majority of your the product that you buy. The costs go up, 5x. It's gonna have an impact. Of course, MCE has forward contracts to offset a lot of that, but it certainly had an impact, and that really was the primary driver of increasing costs that MCE has faced over the last couple of years. I think that's pretty much it on that slide. I'll just say, oh, yeah, important point. So you can see how prices have come way down now. So that last bar there would be where we are today. And so we've come off from around 90 or even $100 per megawatt hour just for the renewable premium. Now we're down in the 20, maybe low 20s. So kind of back to normal, thankfully. All right, we'll go to the next slide, please. And I know we don't have a ton of time. I will say a very similar story on resource adequacy, kind of a little different format, but the idea is the same, where these prices shot up, in this case, about 400%. So not quite as bad as renewables, but still pretty crazy. As of this was probably hitting a peak in around June of last year. And since that time, they've fallen way back down to earth. That green line, the lowest line, is current prices. So we've seen a tremendous fall off in capacity prices as well. So again, just want to emphasize we have come out of a period of extreme volatility and really what I would consider unprecedented when it comes to renewable energy and RA prices. Okay, let's move on to how things are trending. So I mentioned an unusually mild summer and loads were low across the CAISO, certainly true for MCE. Here we're comparing the 2025 monthly retail sales volume to the average for that same month for the last 3 years. And you can see every month we are down relative to historical norms, and particularly in July. July happened to be the coolest July on record for MCE. It was just very, very unusually cool. So the air conditioning load just did not show up. August was also a little bit cooler than normal. The August values shown on this chart are not final. These are preliminary, but it looks like August is going to come in a bit low as well. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next one. So what does it mean for the budget? So looking out for the full year, what we are seeing is that revenue will be below budget due to the low sales volume and particularly the mild summer. Power costs will also come in below budget. This is due similarly to the low sales volume. but also to the downward trend in energy prices that I talked about, and then the accelerated renewable deliveries that, I also talked about that PG&E contract. All those factors together will result in a actual power cost coming in below budget. Net operating revenue, so the difference between revenues and power costs, we're expecting to actually come in a little bit better than budget. So the drop in power costs we expect will outpace the decline in revenue, and so on net we should be in a little bit better place than originally budgeted. In terms of what might change these factors, the one I think MCE's done what it can do. The MC being the procurement team in terms of locking down supply contracts, pretty much fully hedged at this point for the current fiscal year. So there's no planned open positions. What will change the expected, or what will change relative to expectations going forward would really be unplanned things, unplanned factors like increases in congestion or unusual weather continues, that type of thing. All right, let's go to the next one, please. So year to date, this was through June. I think you've already seen this, but this would be the first 3 months of the fiscal year. Revenues are off about 7% due to low sales volume. Power costs are actually a little higher than budgeted for this 3-month period. So that's, at first it's a little bit of a head scratcher. What you need to keep in mind is that we have not yet benefited from the effects of that PG&E contract being shifted, because April, which is within the current fiscal year, there was a large amount. That was the last month where these deliveries occurred, and it was a large amount. So we do expect to see the benefits of having shifted those costs, to the prior year start to hit in July and going forward. And then, the other factor that we expect will drive power costs below is just the fact that we've had less sales. So some of the contracted power that's been purchased will be sold back to CAISO, and that'll bring the power costs down. So if we look then at projecting out for the full year, and so this would include the actual power cost through June. It includes the effect of the actual sales through August, and then everything for September through March, everything is projected with the most current estimates. This is where we continue to see the revenue expectation to be around 7% below the original budget. But now we're showing that power costs are expected, are expected to be about 9% below budget. So one more, please. Thank you. Yeah. And so current expectation is a net energy revenue of about 72 million versus the budget of 61. And then we have one more slide, and we have 2 minutes maybe, but I'll do this in 30 seconds if possible.
And I do think we have
I'm
a number
sorry.
of board members that can stay on. I think
Okay.
we're losing 2, but
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, but I don't think we can see the slides anymore online. I have it on the package, but I just wanted to mention that.
We can see them in San Rafael.
Okay. Keep going. So this last slide is a chart of MCE's average power costs per megawatt hour over time, going back to this is on fiscal year basis, and going back to 2023. And you can definitely see the upward trend through the last fiscal year. And then we're here in fiscal year ending 2026. So we're now starting to benefit from a bit of a downward trend. We do see that continuing. If we were to extend this line out one more year, we're predicting another decrease and then a relative flattening at that point. So we are kind of digesting the big run up in renewable costs that happened the last couple of years, and it's starting to kind of get out of the system. But because of the forward contracting and the hedging, it's dampened on the way up, but it's also kind of relatively slow to come off on the way down. And with that, I thank you for your time and
Thank you very much for the presentation. I know we have one or two board members who do need to leave, but those who are able to stay, hopefully we can do a round of questions. If you can focus your comments on questions in the interest of time, that would be preferable. We'll start with Concord. Chair Scales Preston, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just stepping out for my next
Okay.
meeting.
No worries. Thank you. Vice Chair Quinto, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. Director Darling?
Yeah, I do have a couple. Relative to the decrease in RA prices, I know when regulatory requirements were requiring us to purchase a bunch of RA, it was very frustrating because the laws of supply and demand, nobody could produce the RA fast enough for those price signals to increase the supply. We were just all chasing RA. Did they, so it sounds like they were able, the market did end up producing additional RA for sale, and that's why, is that why the
Yes.
price dropped?
Yeah, we've had about 8,000 megawatts of battery storage added in the last couple of years, and that has really helped. And so a lot of what the CPUC has done, I mean, we haven't been big fans of exactly the way they've gone about it with the procurement orders, but it has been effective in moving from a real shortage situation to one where there is enough supply, and so that's what's happened to prices.
Has the CPUC, I know their regulatory requirements have been driving it, and it actually has produced it. Are we seeing any reaction from CPUC about future regulatory requirements? Are they happy?
Well, that's a big question. So, in terms of resource adequacy, they instituted the slice a day framework. This 2025 was the first year of that. I think now that there was a lot of, I think, a little bit of holding back before the industry understood how slice a day would work. And now there seems to be a much more, a higher level of comfort. And so you'll start to see load serving entities sell some of the excess that they were just holding back as a risk management measure. I'm not really seeing a whole lot more reform on RA. I think they've kind of gone with this slice a day for a while. There are changes. There will be more incremental procurement orders. I think that's fair to say. There's a whole new integrated resource planning. I forget the acronym. It's got 3 Ps and a C in there. Don, help me out.
RCPP.
Thank you.
That's a lot of Ps.
Yeah, so that'll really kind of combine the integrated resource planning process with the incremental procurement and hopefully harmonize it, make it a little bit more rational. I think one of the concerns we had about the way incremental procurement orders were done was they were kind of ad hoc and unpredictable. So that's supposed to but that'll be a big, I think that'll be one of the fundamental regulatory reforms going forward.
Do you think for example, the fire down at Moss Landing, is that going to affect the industry's ability to continue to produce the extra RA that we're looking for, or?
That's a good question. There seemed to be immediately in the aftermath of that a little bit of a step back, but nobody's talking about that anymore. And there's a lot of battery deals going through.
Our memory being the memory of gnats is now in
Yes.
advantage. And then on PCC 1 versus PCC 3, I know we made the policy decision years ago to go with PCC 1 versus PCC 3. Could you just kind of describe why we did that for
Yeah.
people that weren't here?
Yeah, right. And then there's PCC 2, which,
We don't need it. It's in between.
which is kind of in between. PCC 3 is, that is unbundled renewable energy credits or certificates. It's cheap. There's a lot of flexibility in how it's used in a portfolio, but it has historically drawn a lot of criticism from, a fair number of people that it's not as, I guess, real or legitimate as, say, a PCC 1. So that's always been there, but MCE has used PCC3 in the past, doesn't really anymore. The the Energy Commission, the entity that sets the power source disclosure regulations, right? The power content label that goes out and says, okay, you bought so much renewable energy, so much, brown energy, what have you. They changed the treatment of PCC3 where it really devalues it. It makes it look on the power content label like it's not renewable energy.
Oh, okay.
So with that change, I think that's one factor. The other factor is on the power content label now we have greenhouse gas emissions of the portfolio. PCC3 for that calculation does not reduce the GHG metric, so it's just treated like brown power. So there's not a lot of value in that product, other than other entities that are maybe just focused strictly on compliance and no real concern about maybe how their power content label appears or their environmental aspirations. They'll use PCC3 because it's so cheap. You can get it for, I don't know, $5 a megawatt hour instead of 25 for.
I've always
for
kind of
PCC3.
thought of it as like when the airline tries to sell you offsetting your greenhouse gases. Oh yeah, here we're planting trees somewhere. I think PCC3 is like that. As far as the hedging during the summer, I know we got caught up a little short this year because nobody needed all the power that we have. I know we do the hedging to prevent a risk on the upside if we have heat events. Do you think right now we're hedged at about the right level, or is there some flexibility in how much we're hedging on summer
Yeah.
costs?
Yeah, I still think that the way that MC goes about it is right. And that looks at, okay, what is demand on a typical weather year? So let's look historically at normal weather, what are we expected to what are our customers expected to consume? And then basically contract for that level so that there's, and I'm talking about within the current budget year or just before the budget year starts, because the theory is that we don't want to introduce more variance than necessary in the power cost line item. So where that falls short is, well, if we have a hot summer and loads are up, then we're not hedged for that increment unless we could go out and buy more short term, but by then usually prices have reacted and gone up too. But if it goes the other way, like this year where the weather was cool, now we're selling that power back effectively, usually at prices below what we paid, right? So power costs are coming down, but it's not one for one with the sales volume coming down. If we're off by 10% on sales, then the power cost might come down by, I don't know, 6%, right? Something like that. So that's the downside of being hedged, is that if your load drops, usually when MC's load's dropping, everybody's load's dropping, right? Because it's driven by weather.
Nobody wants it.
And then the prices are low. So, and the same thing on the other way, right?
But we're not hedging. Like, I think it was 2022 was the year that the governor had to send out the turn off your air conditioner email. And that was a year where it was a really extreme heat event. We're not hedging at that level. We're just
Correct.
hedging for the typical summer events.
Yeah, when we're doing the real forward hedges now, sometimes there will be some short-term purchases if a heat wave's coming. That's been done now and then, and Vic may want to comment on that. But usually by then it's almost too late, just because everybody else sees the heat wave coming, unless we have better weather people than somebody else, and so the prices have already moved up.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate all the insight.
Thank you, Director. Director Nakamura, any questions? Director Murphy.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you so much, Mr. DeLussy, for your presentation. Can you, on the product pricing, can you explain the PCC2 renewable? You talked about the 3, but I was wondering about 2.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask about that.
I have to.
Yeah. Okay, so PCC1, think of it as essentially renewable projects within California or directly connected to California, and you're buying the energy and the renewable attribute, right? That's what MC essentially buys. Jump to PCC3, you're just buying the renewable attribute, so you're not really buying the energy as well, right? PCC2 is a little bit of a hybrid between the two. It will be out of state, it'll be energy from an out of state renewable project, but you're not actually importing the power, you're importing a different source of power into California, and you're kind of marrying them up. So it's a little, like I said, it's a little bit of a hybrid. When it comes down to power content label, the advantage of PCC2 versus PCC3 is it does at least show up as renewable energy. So if you bought from wind in Oregon as PCC2, that'll show up as wind on your power content label. Emissions, however, will not it will not be a wind emissions rate. It'll still be a system power emissions rate. So you don't get an emissions benefit. You can pay extra to to get carbon-free import power with it, but that would come at additional cost. So and then the price is kind of in between as well. So today price of PCC2 is probably around $15 versus like 24, 25 for PCC1 and maybe 5 for PCC3.
Gotcha. And so just to clarify, is your office responsible for doing those financial models for us? So you're saying, for example, if we did choose PCC2, which my understanding is we're choosing PCC1, if there were, I mean, it looks like it's about $10 per megawatt hour less than PCC1, but you're also saying we would have to add an account for an additional labeling, or help me understand
we would,
the
in
pricing.
order not to degrade our emissions metric, right? We would have to then also buy some hydro, basically, and that's going to cost more than the $10 spread right now, right? So that it wouldn't be economic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If we didn't care about carbon emissions, which of course is not the case, then yes, you could do that. You could save money by going with PCC2, but because it would negatively impact the portfolio emissions rate, we would have to go out, buy the large hydro, or it could be nuclear. But when you combine all those prices, you're above the price of PCC1.
Gotcha. Okay. And then my last question is on slide 3. You talked about the power costs being impacted by the variables, including congestion pricing. Did you also mentioned, I think on slide 5 or maybe slide 8, about how some of the variances of our fiscal year's budget will be due to uncontrollable factors like congestion pricing. So what, I guess uncontrollable is always like one of those terms where it's like it's uncontrollable until it's controllable, or it's controllable until it's uncontrollable, basically. Like how is your team assessing those those moments, I guess we're having multiple moments, right, of congestion pricing. How does your team assess those with MCE staff? Like, what are you doing to help our team understand better, like how to make those more or create parameters around those factors that will impact our budget?
Yeah. Well, with congestion, I mean, first we just start off with attempting to model what the congestion would be for all the different supply points that are in the MCE portfolio, and then MCE staff, they do work to obtain congestion revenue rights from the CAISO. Congestion revenue rights protect against congestion. To an extent, they're not perfect, but they can help offset the cost of congestion. So looking at points where we work together to say, okay, you've got a renewable generator at this particular node, the congestion's pretty significant there. Let's see if we can get the congestion revenue rights to protect against some of that. Like I said, the CRRs, or congestion revenue rights, they don't completely insulate you from it, and so those are the uncontrollable factors. There's different components that, like marginal line losses, for instance, is one component the congestion revenue right won't protect against, and that's just uncontrollable. It's just kind of it's however the market settles. It's going to determine what that cost is. So there are ways to mitigate, but you can't mitigate everything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I see Chair Perez has stepped out. Are there any questions from Marin?
We've actually lost two board members, but I think they're both returning in a minute. John, I do have a few questions. Thank you very much for the presentation. The first one is actually relates to last fiscal year, and so there was obviously this very big bucket of hedging costs within renewables. Can you just list for me the items that fall into that hedging bucket, meaning what instruments fall into that bucket?
So the hedging instruments would be all fixed price contracts, basically. So this could be a renewable PPA with a solar or a wind or whatever other kind of renewable project at a fixed price. Could be a system energy purchase at a fixed price. So those are all kind of going to fall within the hedging bucket. I mean, the idea being it's energy delivered at a known price.
Okay, it might maybe before the retreat, the way it was presented was a renewable sum, but that was broken down by contracts, meaning PPAs, and then there was just this big hedging bit. And I would love to understand what falls into that, because it wasn't the PPAs; they seem to be falling into something else within that division, as I understand it. So it would definitely be good to understand that, because that seemed like a very big amount. So the second question I have is that you've sort of indicated that except for sort of marginal risks, we're pretty much fully hedged for this year, for the current fiscal year. At this time in the last fiscal year, would you have also said that we were pretty much fully hedged?
Yes, yes. And when we look at how we did last fiscal year relative to how we thought we would do at that time, we came in, you have to kind of adjust for that PG&E
Agreed.
delivery. If you adjust for that, we came in with 1% of the mid-year outlook.
Okay. I mean, I guess for me, again, it's the actual year on year that I'm still struggling a little bit with, because I mean, for you, the head scratcher for me is really just looking at these other CCAs on the same quarterly basis for last year that saw really very low volatility in their energy costs versus ours. And I guess I'm just trying to understand, how do we explain that to our customers, that we're different? And do we, within our sort of risk strategy, have a higher risk tolerance in some way than other CCAs to explain why that volatility is higher? Because that can be an entirely valid strategy too, but it's really just to understand whether that is where we were coming from, or why we had such strong year-on-year changes, understanding that there were market conditions, but they didn't seem to so aggressively affect other CCAs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have to look at that case by case. I mean, I would be surprised if other CCAs weren't impacted by a 500% increase in renewable prices.
Right.
I would just have to see kind of which programs are we looking at, and I just don't have that information available to me at this point. So if it's been kind of compiled, happy to look at it and see if I have an opinion on why there might be differential results. But yeah, I would be surprised at that.
Exactly, because I think that would be really helpful for us, and I think those can certainly be shared in terms of the ones that seem to have a very steady energy cost, because that's the only conundrum. You're very convincingly explaining the difficulties in the market, but if they're not captured by others, that's where we're struggling with our communities who see MCE with some of the more expensive than PG&E in this territory, and so we just have some work to do locally, I guess, in explaining that. So thank you.
And Director Wilkinson, I just want to remind you that this was explained during the CEO report, but we don't have audited financials from any other CCAs yet. So what you may be looking at includes a lot of projections and assumptions because there is a time lag in getting actual results. So I think doing that analysis is very possible, but not until we have apples to apples information to compare against.
That's absolutely fine. It's just it has to be apples to apples in terms of what quarters of the year as well. So that's the struggle because they have different fiscal year ends. But yes, I would love to see an apples for apples comparison and an explanation, I guess. So thank you.
Is there anyone else in Marin that has any more questions?
Yes, we have Director Andre.
Okay, so you're back, Max.
I just stepped out for the restroom real
That's
quick.
okay.
So.
I figured that's what you were doing, but I was like, oh, the chairs are all empty.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I asked Director Wilkinson to go next. So, Director Andre.
Mr. DeLacy, thank you very much for your presentation. My questions have to do with, there's not a lot of visibility from the board's perspective into our hedging strategy and also the amount of risk. And so, you say we're fully hedged, and yet, we had some big swings last year. So what can you tell us? Are we overhedged, underhedged? What is the actual market risk exposure that we have with respect to our portfolio?
Right. So we're on a weather normal load forecast basis. We're at 100% hedge coverage for the balance of the fiscal year. If we go back to what happened this summer, we went in a little over 100%, and that was planned. And loads came in below normal, and so we wound up overhedged for the summer. But looking forward, we're at that 100% level. So that's why what I'm saying we're 100% hedged. So that's when I think of hedging, it's really what's our exposure to CAISO pricing, to volatile energy pricing. And so that's one, and then there's sort of one perspective, but then there's also exposure to renewable attribute pricing, and that's really kind of what hurt last year, was not so much our market exposure to CAISO, but it was that there were some open positions to meet the overall renewable content. And that last, whatever it was, 5% of renewable energy purchases were done at extremely high prices, right? It's kind of just getting hit by that tremendous run up. So I can also say that from a renewable content perspective, we are fully covered as well. So that's what I mean. There are no open positions for the balance of the fiscal year. And that's not to say that we can predict the cost, with certainty going forward. There's still some uncontrollable factors that will influence a bit. But what can be done from a contracting standpoint has been done.
Okay, great. And when the hedge, when you're hedged fully, that means none of the shorter term hedges are rolling. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah. I mean, that's accounted for. So if something's rolling off, it's been replaced by another contract.
So you've already entered into contracts for the contracts that are rolling this year. Is that the correct way to interpret your response?
Yes.
Okay. And it would be extremely helpful if you could show us the components of, you were saying the PPA pricing, the shorter term hedges, the renewable attributes, purchases, like all these different components. It's very difficult for the board when it just all comes in, the large $700 million number, $745 million number. It would be very helpful to see a breakdown of each of those components and how they trend over time. And it would just give us a much better idea of what's actually going on with respect to the energy costs. And then I guess my second question probably has more to do with, oh, by the way, there was a numerical error on one of those slides. So I'm going to point that out in case any members of the public are going back and looking at the numbers. But the actual operating loss I'm sorry, the actual energy cost for Q1 2026 is 186 million. And I think there was some other number on that slide. But I do want to point out, I mean, we ended the first quarter at a negative $15 million operating loss. And we're now being shown a pro forma that is significantly better. And so I'm concerned that you've shown us some good market slides of what's going on in the market, but how does that translate to the budget in your pro formas? Like there's a big leap here, and I'm struggling to make that leap. And so if you could show us some information with respect to, okay, here are the market prices, but this is how it's going to impact MCE given the contracts that we've signed, the hedging that we've done, all of that, that would be extremely helpful, because right now we're looking at a pro forma and there's no other data that shows us how these numbers are being built up. So I'm interested in seeing how those numbers are built up. And secondly, my second question is probably for management, but given the fact that, this pro forma is different and in some respects very different from the budget, are you asking for a budget amendment, or what is happening with the budget? Because my understanding is once a board approves the budget, that is the operating plan for the year. And so if you're showing us new numbers now for two line items for the revenue, the customer revenues, and also the energy costs, like I'm not sure what is happening here with the budget, the board approved budget.
We're not requesting a budget amendment at this point. It's still pretty early in the year. We're just looking at Q1 results, but we'll continue to monitor and circle back when we get closer to Q2.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess my data request still stands. Is just how is the budget, how is the pro forma being built, just given the market information that we just saw? Thank you.
And can I clarify, are you imagining something where we list each contract and the price so that you can add them all together?
No, what I'm looking for is a breakdown of the energy cost and how that line item is being forecasted. And also on the revenue side as well, if you have customer load forecasts that we can look at and what dollar per kilowatt hour that you guys are, management is assuming in building up the revenue line item, that would also be helpful. I'm just looking for the next level down, because we have this huge jump from what the market pricing is to here's the pro forma energy cost for MCE for the year. And so I'm trying to understand, and again, we have some big swings going on. We just had a negative first quarter, but now it looks like, the pro forma makes it look like we're going to be okay. So I'm just trying to understand how these numbers are moving. Thank you.
Can I try something? Mr. DeLucia, if you were to try to break down the energy cost numbers, what would be the most meaningful units? We know how much we spend overall, but if we were to try to break that down to help people understand how the different elements work together, how would you break it down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it's broken down in the budget. Am I incorrect there? I thought it was broken into like renewable contracts, RA costs. So, it make most sense to me if you want like more detail on sort of what I presented here to break that down in those same categories, then, that could be done. We'll say that the drivers are sales volume and the PG&E accelerated deliveries. That's going to, be accounting for the vast majority of the variance, but it could be broken down in the same way as the budget's broken down.
But we'd break it down like in the budget, we break it into RA, power purchase contracts, and then we have hydro is one. I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the way it's broken down in the budget and we can get the pro forma in that same format with the same breakdown, so we can see a comparison of how, the energy costs are changing, and also on the customer revenue line item, I think that would be helpful.
All right. Maybe if Don, if maybe as a next step ahead of our next report on this, perhaps Director Andre would be willing to sit with our finance staff and offer some of these suggestions or review a draft, something along those lines. I think these are good suggestions. Maybe Director Darling as well. I think asked some good questions. If staff would be open to that. I don't know if that would be Mayra or John.
Chair, this is Vicken. Director Andre, I'm available to meet with you anytime you want to go over these things.
Great. Thank you, Vicken.
Sure.
Appreciate it, Vicken. All right. Any last questions from San Rafael? See none. We are over time, so I would recommend for item number 7, the MCE Public Officials Code of Ethics that's been brought forward. I would recommend we move that to November. I have provided some detailed thoughts and suggestions to staff on this proposal and some of the specifics. I would encourage the rest of the XCOM to do as well. That could help guide the discussion in November so that staff knows what to anticipate in terms of feedback ahead of that meeting, and that can make the item move quicker. But really appreciate everyone's staying till the end here today, for everyone to exercise a bit of grace and for respecting each other's points of view and for keeping us on track. Are there any committee and staff matters for discussion today? Item number 9.
Did you defer 8A as well?
That's right.
Oh, you did.
Sorry, 8A as well for looking at 2024. Are folks okay with deferring that? Or did
That item was presented in the CEO report and doesn't need any further discussion unless the board or the committee wants to. But I think we did have a comment from Justine Parmalee.
Yes, please. Justine, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair. I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds here. Justine Parmalee, Vice President of Internal Operations. Our November meeting actually has quite a packed agenda, as this is an action item. I would suggest maybe 2 options. One, folks can reach out to me just as you did with some feedback in advance. We can workshop it and put it on consent. Or if we want to look at it by committee, I can pull it up on the screen. We can redline it together, but I would recommend a later meeting as the November meeting is fairly packed.
Okay. Oftentimes we do cancel our December meeting, I believe, but I've heard a couple of board members today mention an interest in not canceling as many meetings, and since we have a packed agenda, maybe we could do a December meeting this year. We did one last year, I know, and we could put this on that agenda.
Yeah, we do typically hold a December XCOM meeting because it's in the first week.
Okay, it's just the board meeting, I guess we canceled then. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Director Andre.
Sorry, one other question. For the November meeting, and because I'm new on XCOM, maybe we could go through the process for the, is it the CEO review?
That's what we're going to be doing in November, I believe. Yeah, the CEO evaluation.
Okay.
And not going through the process, but actually getting the feedback and discussing.
Okay.
Which is an annual item. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was also reviewed at our September board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Great. All right. Seeing no more items, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.